we're wrapping up the 31 Days of Dread with Saint Maud. 2019. This is one of the best horror movies, like, of the recent years. You hear Hereditary so much in those conversations. You don't hear a lot about Saint Maud. Saint Maud is perfectly horror, perfectly complex. And the way how the film critic world received this movie is also of note. It's also worthy of discussion. You have two positions with Saint Maud. You come in expecting a psychological thriller, something close to Jacob's Ladder. Or you can come into this as a horror movie. And because if you come in as a horror movie and you receive it as a horror movie, it's one of the scariest things on Earth. It might be the best possession movie on planet Earth. This movie is a force. This movie is designed, thoughtful, well acted, and it has intent. A lot of critics, they'll confuse you because they'll say the movie can go in this way or in that direction, or there's open interpretation. On this podcast, on the 31 Days of Dread, the Film Buff podcast, we fight against that notion. We fight against movies having open endings. The reason for that is we have to return to an age of storytelling where we can wrap up, finish a story, and put our personal stamp as a creator on that film. So let's get into it for the final film for the 31 Days of Dread 2024. It's 2019's Saint Maud. It's October, and it's time for the 31 Days of Dread. This is where you get one horror movie a day for the entire month of October. That's how much we love horror. That's how much we love Halloween on the Film Buff podcast. And here's the crazy thing. This is the longest running horror event in all of podcasting. So get ready. We're going to rock and roll. We're going to scare our socks off. And yes, we're going to be grabbing some candy, maybe some cereal. Let's go. AKAPADers, welcome back. Just thinking about this movie, parts of how people report and criticize this movie, it upsets me, and I think we're moving away from things that matter when it comes to cinematic storytelling. You guys know, it's not that I cannot have an open-ended ending. I cannot have an ending up to interpretation. It just needs to be at a certain place, and I know that's an undefinable platitude. But at the same time, when filmmakers leave something open-ended or open to interpretation or just floating there, like here's an idea and the movie's over, let me float it to you. I just feel they don't know how to wrap up the movie. I think for a lot of movies, this is very clear. So recently, this past weekend, I was at a dinner party and Killing of a Sacred Deer came up. And I just kind of was like, come on. Like, we still don't know what that movie is about, what the intent is, what happens at the end. It's just a journey that kind of goes nowhere. And then the argument's just like, hey, isn't it, like, fascinating to wonder? I'm like, no, I don't need that in cinema. I need it sometimes, but it's just too prevalent. So some of that conversation echoes into Saint Maud, where Saint Maud is a possession movie. Saint Maud is the devil itself. This is what the devil or his minions can do to you. This is a movie where a woman, she's vulnerable out of regret. She accidentally kills someone. She's a at-home nurse, like a hospice nurse. Someone dies. She feels accountable, and that regret leaves the door ajar for the devil. And what the devil does throughout this movie is basically educate her on the darkness. And at times she embraces it, and times she doesn't. But this is an education. She's being towed along a line to a finale that is so striking, to maybe one of the final frames, one of the last great final frames. The final frame, the final second of this movie sticks to you. So imagine the artistry of the filmmaker. We sit down. Yeah, maybe how long is this? I don't know how long this movie is. 90 minutes, 2 hours. But let's just say you sit down for 90 minutes to get 1 second. And that single second is so impactful. It sticks to you. It sticks to your ribs. And you leave this experience knowing something. The devil possesses and tricks this woman. That's the point. And along the way, she leans in on it from time to time. This movie is incredibly shot, directed, written by Rose Glass. We love her. Her previous movie, or her next movie, I'm sorry, Love Lies Bleeding for 2024 this year. If Love Lies Bleeding is not in the running of Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actor, if it's not in those categories with cinematography and music, Love Lies Bleeding is an absolute Oscar contender in nearly every single category. I would be beside myself if Love Lies Bleeding wins the Oscar. I really feel like it should. This is her second movie, and this chick is awesome. I love Rose Glass. Whatever she is working on next, I'm already there. Now, she's got some short films. We talk about reviewing, discussing short films more and more. I do want to get to that point. But as you can see, just a quick skirt here, guys. Already this year for the 31 Days of Dread, I have about 11 movies that I have to bring to you guys. I waited till the end to record this one. So it looks like we will be doing a expanded 31 Days of Dread. It's going to go into Thanks Flicking. Thanks Flicking, we will do a bombastic introduction episode for that next, where I'm going to call on you guys to submit to me some of your movies. I want to know what some of the movies you're thankful for. Viewer submission, call it. So, we got a lot of work to do, but we we were very ambitious. Team AKAPAD, the whole production crew, very, very on task. Now, this is revenge, if you guys like revenge stories, because a couple of years ago, the 31 Days of Dread almost extended into December. That's how much things were spiraling. But busy lifestyle. Nothing tragic, just busyness. Now, I control the wave a little bit more, scheduling, a lot better with scheduling. But sometimes you got to dip like that to learn. And it's not like we haven't had dips like that on this podcast in the past. You always just try and rebound with some fury. Saint Maud is a marquee movie. Saint Maud is horror. Now, in the intro, I said we can come into this movie as a psychological thriller where a lot of low-hanging fruit critics go. The reason why they go, because you don't have to interpret much. You can say that she's slipping into madness and she's mad. If that's the hook of this movie and that's the intent of this movie, then it's an overwhelming, unsatisfying experience. Everything I told you about this movie leading up to this, that the devil is towing the line with this girl, educating her along the way to show her something. And at the end of the movie, she becomes that something. It's so much more impactful. So yes, deciding what the intent is of the movie to you along the way improves, or sometimes downgrades the film going experience. This is not a psychological thriller. This woman is not slipping into madness. This woman embraces the darkness as it's displayed to her. Very similar to Kylo Ren in Star Wars Force Awakens. AKAPAD. I cannot recommend this movie enough. I originally intended to launch the 31 Days of Dread with this movie because I thought it was that impactful. I'm happy to wrap it up with you guys. And in moving down the line, we will do a expansion episode where I'm just going to profile the next movies coming up for the expanded 2024 31 Days of Dread, because there's just a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff that we sat down to watch, and there's a lot of notes for me to go through. So I still want to bring you those, and you guys seem to enjoy the 31 Days of Dread, so we will continue it. So guys, Saint Maud for the 31 Days of Dread, day 31, 2024. It's a wrap, but we're going to keep going. I love you guys. Rock and roll. AKAPADers, thank you for joining me for another episode of the 31 Days of Dread. We have been dedicated to horror for a long time on this feed, on this podcast. If you guys want to know more about everything we do here, go to akapad.com. From there, you can navigate to the 31 Days of Dread. We have a dedicated landing page that goes through all the years of the 31 Days of Dread, and we also have a directory that jumps you to any movie that we've done. So you can just look up the movie by name, you can go to the directory, it's all alphabetical, and you can just explore. And that's the intent, and that's why we're so into the 31 Days of Dread, because no one's done this. No one has put this much time, this much thought and effort into American horror and international horror, and we love it. Horror is the future of American cinema. Horror right now is holding up American cinema, and I'm so thankful for it. So I'm hoping that you can extend yourself, explore, and continue the conversation. akapad.com. Thanks, guys.